This is Becoming Undone.
A free t-shirt probably saved my life. And at the very least, it most likely saved my marriage. In 1998, I got to experience the greatest season in University of Arizona Wildcat football history, pretty much firsthand. But it almost didn't happen, if not for a single free t-shirt. Let me explain. Have you ever been all in, like so far in, so engaged in something you're trying to do that you couldn't get out if you tried? I knew there was a term for it, and digging back through the dusty old memory banks, the term is point of no return. It was a term I first discovered way back in 1990 while I was watching Back to the Future Part 3.
Great, Doc. These things still work.
All right, Marty. Once more, let's go over the entire plan and layout. I apologize for the crudity of this model, but
Yeah, no, Doc. It's not to scale. It's okay, Doc.
All right. Tomorrow night, Sunday, we'll load the DeLorean onto the tracks here on the spur, right by the old abandoned silver mine. The switch track is where the spur runs off the main line 3 miles out to Clayton, Shonash Ravine. The train leaves the station at 8 Monday morning. We'll stop it here, uncouple the cars from the tender, throw the switch track, and then we'll borrow the locomotive and use it to push the time machine. According to my calculations, we'll reach 88 miles per hour just before we hit the edge of the ravine, at which point we'll be instantaneously transported back to 1985 and coast safely across the completed bridge.
What does this mean? Point of no return.
That's our fail-safe point. Up until there, we still have enough time to stop the locomotive before it plunges into the ravine. But once we pass this windmill, it's the future or bust.
As Doc Brown teaches us, if you're working on a project or aiming for a goal, or otherwise just living your life at half speed, oftentimes you can decide to change path without too much pain, without too much heartbreak. But when you're full speed ahead, you might be facing some serious consequences if you wait too long. The old interwebs says that a point of no return is, quote, a stage in a process or a journey where it becomes impossible or highly undesirable to reverse course or change direction, often implying a commitment to a specific path, end quote. For my wife Christy and me, in 1998, somewhere between Galatia, Illinois and the Christopher City Apartments in Tucson, Arizona, we unknowingly drove right by a point of no return without even realizing it. Heck, thinking back, we might have even stopped for gas at it. Who knows? We'd been married for right at a year. Christy had finished her student teaching, and I'd finished my clinical hours and passed the certification exam to become an athletic trainer. We'd graduated from undergrad, and I'd been offered and accepted a spot at the University of Arizona. We'd lived frugally for a year, to say the least, and we were headed to Tucson with the hopes of finally getting paid enough to pay the bills and maybe go out to eat once in a while. We laughed because that first year of marriage, we literally only ate out once, on my birthday no less. Sadly, for whatever reason, I don't recall us eating out at a restaurant on her birthday though. Anyhow, we rented a small U-Haul kind of truck, heard something like that, and loaded our hand-me-down furniture and whatever else we had and headed west. The university doesn't pay moving expenses for GAs, so we put the truck rental on the lone miserable little credit card we had, maxing it out in the process, and we used what little cash we had left to pay for gas and the food to get there. I don't even remember how we paid for that first month's rent. I knew if we could just get there, the job awaited, and I'd get paid soon enough, probably in a couple weeks, and everything would be fine. Wrong. Problem was, at U of A, at least at the time, we only got paid once a month. And you didn't get paid at all until you'd been there at least a month. If I recall, we moved in on like the 6th or the 7th of June. So July, right? We'd have to survive for 3 weeks somehow with no money. Wrong again. Since I hadn't been there a full month, I wouldn't get paid for that month. And then the university required a full month to process new hires. So my first check would not come in July. It wouldn't even come in August. It would be September 1st. So just to recap, in case you were wondering, we moved like 1,500 miles west, using all the money we had, maxing out our credit card. And even though I was working as much as 50 or 60 hours a week right away, we didn't get paid for nearly 3 months. Meanwhile, Christy was looking for work and finally found a job at the Muscular Dystrophy Association headquarters in Tucson. But still, it was over 3 months without a check. Ugh. No money for rent. No money for groceries. No money for gas. I tried calling Discover to get them to bump our credit line. No luck. What were we going to do? In that moment of desperation, we thought briefly about loading up and just going home. Things were that bad. I seriously considered it until I realized the truth. We couldn't. We didn't even have the money to move back. I was as humbled as I'd ever been up to that point in my life. I remember sitting alone in our lavish, cinder block-walled one-bedroom apartment, thinking about how I'd dragged us all the way out here, and now I couldn't even afford to move us back home if I wanted to. We had passed the point of no return. I was desperate. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. In my anguish, I did what I often do when I don't know what to do. I cleaned. I was straightening out my desk when I stumbled across a St. Louis Cardinals MB&A credit card that had my name on it. I'd never used it. It hadn't even been activated. I had to think back as to how I'd even gotten it in the first place. The summer before I'd gotten married, my high school buddies and I all took an overnight trip to St. Louis to hang out together, do some back-to-school shopping, and catch a Cardinals baseball game. In those days, credit card companies were like vultures on college kids. They'd regularly set up at concerts, sporting events, various places on college campuses, usually employing cute co-eds to staff their booths, promising free t-shirts in exchange for a credit card application. We were at the Cardinals game, and my friends and I saw the booth, and we agreed to take them up on their offer. We all signed up for MB&A Cardinals Visa cards. We got our free shirts, and I promptly forgot about it. Sometime later, apparently that Cardinals card was mailed to my parents' house, where I was still living at the time. And sometime after that, that non-activated, still gummy stuck to the paper and sealed in the envelope card found its way into my desk drawer. And somehow that desk drawer remained undisturbed for nearly a full year, surviving a move first to Ann, Illinois, and then to Tucson, Arizona. Until I found it. In our time of most desperate need, I found it. Or maybe it found me. Thinking back on it now, I'm surprised it was still even valid. I called the number on the back to try to activate it, half expecting it to have been canceled already. But to my surprise, I was able to activate it. Suddenly, a whopping $1,250 credit limit was ours for the glorious taking. We would survive. We could stay. Even though we'd driven right through that point of no return without even realizing it, the Lord came through in the form of a forgotten St. Louis Cardinals Visa card I'd simply gotten because I wanted a free t-shirt, and we'd live to tell the story later. And I'm glad we did. That 1998 season in Tucson was magical. Multiple players with NFL talent, deep, experienced, and committed coaching staff, several of whom would go on to great personal success themselves. With Coach Tomey at the helm, but a collection of people with an unwavering commitment to be their own best, it all came together for what remains to this day the single greatest season in Wildcat football history. The offensive coordinator and running backs coach for that team was Dino Babers, whose connection to Coach Tomey runs deep. Coach Babers' name still commands respect across the college football world. Head coach, mentor, motivator. But before all that, he was a teenager in Hawaii with a Navy dad, a dream of playing ball, and a life-changing encounter with a fiery, passionate coach named Dick Tomey. If you've stuck around this long, I guess it's worth mentioning that I'm Toby Brooks. In addition to being a professor, speaker, podcaster, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I spent 3 years at the University of Arizona as a graduate assistant athletic trainer. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was part of the staff for Coach Dick Tomey's final season with the Wildcats in 2000. In a world consumed with numbers, Coach Dick Tomey's stats simply cannot and do not tell the whole story. But if you talk to the people who played for him, coached alongside him, or worked with him for a time, they'll tell you, no one shaped them quite like Coach Dick Tomey. Sadly, we lost Coach Tomey to a brief but valiant battle with cancer in 2019. But I've been thinking about that, and him, a lot lately. As I've grown up as a professional, I found myself aspiring to lead well and looking deep into the leaders in my own past that I'd like to emulate. And if you're like me, Coach Tomey is at the top of that list. Famously, Coach was frequently quoted as saying, "Football isn't complicated. People are." I think the same could be said for just about any line of work. It's not the job that's complex, but leading the people sure is. And I've not seen many do it better than Coach. In a profession dominated by wins and losses, Dick Tomey created a legacy that endures decades after he coached his last game. It's that legacy that I've been thinking about ever since. How'd he do it? How'd he inspire so many to follow him, to believe in him, and to carry his lessons forward, not just into their careers, but into their lives? These are questions I just can't shake, so I decided to do something about it. I decided to dive deep into the stories of one of the most transformational leaders I ever got the honor and pleasure to serve. With you joining me for the journey, we've already been able to hear from some of the people who knew him best: his players, his staff, his family. In these and future episodes, we'll explore the moments that defined him, the values he instilled in others, and the lasting impact he left on the game. We've walked with him through those early years in Indiana, his first head coaching job at Hawaii, his time at Arizona, and his return to the sidelines at San Jose State. Even the years in retirement when he kept on serving and loving and mentoring. Not just the sport of football, mind you, but the people of it. And in this process, with you by my side, I think we will both not only get a refreshing chance to remember a legend, we'll also learn what it takes to lead and to love and to serve our people better too. From player to GA to offensive coordinator under Coach Tomey at Arizona, in this episode, Coach Babers shares some unforgettable stories. Some funny, some emotional, all deeply revealing about what made Coach Tomey different. You'll hear about roaches in living rooms, trick plays, and man hugs. But more than that, you'll hear what it means to lead with love, to fight for culture, and to stay consistent in a world that's anything but. This is Becoming Undone. This is Dino Babers. And this is part 6 of the life, lessons, and legacy of Dick Tomey, a Toby Brooks passion project. Joining me today, I'm thrilled, folks. Dino Babers, Coach Babers, attended the University of Hawaii at Manoa and began his coaching career with Dick Tomey at Hawaii as a GA in 1984. Since then, numerous stops. His resume reads like a who's who of college football. 95 through 2000, he coached on the offensive side of the ball and was the OC at Arizona for Coach Dick Tomey, 98 through 2000. He's also been a head coach at Eastern Illinois, where he was a 2-time OVC Coach of the Year, Syracuse, where he was named AP ACC Coach of the Year in 2018. Coach, thanks for joining me. That's a mouthful to introduce you, but you're worth it. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure, Toby. Thanks for the invite.
Well, you were with Coach Tomey in the early days, and the reason I wanted to get you on early is I'm kind of laying this out chronologically, and yeah, you had that stop, that 98 team in Tucson is kind of the one everyone looks to. It was your splash as an OC, and I think it really opened a lot of doors for a lot of coaches on that staff. But you go way back before that on the island. So wanted to kind of get your insights as to who Dick Tomey was back with the Rainbow Warriors. So first question is your first impression of Coach Tomey. Do you remember the first time you met him, and what was your first impression of the man?
Well, this is a classic. First time I met him was actually at his home visit. He visited me, and I was at 17. My dad passed away in 1994. He was 57 years of age, but he was a military Navy guy. And at the time, I had some choices, but one of my choices was the Naval Academy. I had an appointment to the Naval Academy. My dad was Navy. So Coach Tomey came in on a home visit, and he's talking to us, and my dad's sitting there, and, my dad said something about Naval Academy compared to Hawaii or something. My dad was like 6'2", 235. He played ball. He's a strapping dude. And Coach Tomey stood up and all of a sudden, and not in a mean way, but just in, hey, we've got a lot of things to offer too. And he kind of got, not disrespectful, but stood his ground against my dad. And I was like, wow, that guy's, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
The way he does it. And, and then when all that was over, and then I took a visit out there, and I decided that I wanted to go to the University of Hawaii. I mean, it broke my dad's heart, but I didn't go to the Naval Academy. But in the long run, it all worked out for the best.
Yeah. Coach definitely had, he didn't back down. That's for sure. He had heart of a lion. Every great coach has a lesson or a phrase. There's lots of Dick Tomey-isms. You've got some great ones too that I still use to this day.
Let me hear one of them.
Yours, I say this to my kids. I've said it to my students. They don't call it walking late. I can picture Trunk Candidate in kind of a trainer trot, and you said, we were supposed to go to team period, and you said, we don't call it walking late. Certainly some Coach Tomey-isms have come up in the interviews that I've had so far. What comes to mind for you when I say, those memorable Coach Tomey-isms?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you tired of buying the latest bodybuilding supplement or waist trainer and still not getting the results you want? Feeling lethargic and can only function off coffee or whatever the latest caffeinated beverage is? Then this podcast might be for you. For health and happiness, and I'm your host, IFBB Pro Hafid James, and each week we're here sharing tips, insights, and stories to help you level up your training and your lifestyle by looking at health and fitness from a different perspective. So, grab a water or a protein shake, get comfortable, and let's get better together.
It's a hard one, and it's the one that really drove me, as an assistant and into my coordinator jobs and days until I got an opportunity to be a head coach. But he used to say, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And heads I win, tails you lose. I didn't like that. But when you apply to that, you just can't give yourself an excuse.
Yeah.
And you got to find a way to make it happen. And one of the things I pride myself on, and I think coach was the exact same way, is that coaching is teaching and teaching is coaching. And I said, to me, the only difference is the pay's a little different. But besides that, it's that, as a teacher, and I hope teachers don't get mad at me, you're allowed to give an A, a B, a C, a D, and F. As a coach, you can do that, but there's going to be times where you may have an A player and he gets hurt. And now if you weren't coaching the guy behind him, that C or D person is in the game and represents you and everything you are doing on the football field. And it's a direct representation of yourself and your unit. It's great. Everybody like they're going to beat the guy. Yeah. And that's the thing that motivated me the most out of that state.
Yeah, that's some powerful wisdom. Certainly, Coach had a humor streak in him as well. He was known to be fiery, and he would get in your face if he had to. He's known for his passion and his presence. Do you have any classic only Dick Tomey could do this kind of stories that make you laugh?
Oh, okay. Oh my God. People will be so mad at me. But to me, I'm going to tell you the story about the Roach. Okay. We were doing a home visit with somebody that you might know, this young guy. He was really light. We didn't know. We thought he was really good, but a lot of people thought he was too small to play. Some guy by the name of Dennis North. We're sitting in his house with his mother, and his mother's a beautiful person. And we're in their home, and we're in the living room. And Coach Tomey, there wasn't enough chairs for everybody, so that's classy, Coach Tomey. Well, now he's going to sit down Indian style on the floor. Well, I mean, I can sit on the floor, but I can't sit Indian style. I can't be cool. I'm too tight in the hips to that. So I'm sitting in a chair, and Dennis and his mom are sitting on the sofa. And they've got the coffee table in between them, and we're on one side, they're on the other side. And out of the corner of my eye in the kitchen, this is just me. I'm sitting here going, I see a roach. And I'm going, oh, big deal. It's not like I haven't seen one before. Okay, just stay in the kitchen, dude. Okay. And let's not become a part of this party. And sure enough, the thing starts working its way down from the kitchen right into the living room, which is the next room. And I'm trying to I'm watching the rope and I'm trying to stay on what Coach is talking about. And me and Mrs. Northcutt meets eyes. And I can see that Mrs. Northcutt notices the roach too. And now she's extremely embarrassed. And let me say this, people. A lot of times people think, oh, you got a roach, you got a nasty house, you don't take care of your house. A lot of times the roaches can be coming from the people next door. You could have a hell of a house. It has nothing to do with that situation. But the roach is coming. I don't know what Coach Tomey is going to do. I've never seen Coach Tomey handle a roach. I don't know if Coach Tomey's ever seen a roach. You know what I mean? So the thing is just, it's parading. It's like an HBCU guy out front. This roach is parading like the proudest roach in America, coming down the middle of the living room. And Coach is talking with his hands, and here comes this roach straight at him. And then out of the sky, Coach sees the roach, and he just goes, quicks the roach all the way to the kitchen, never breaks stride with the heck there, and finishes the conversation. Okay. Now I'm telling you this, so the conversation ends, we leave. Okay, I leave something in the house, I knock on the door, and I tell Mrs. Northcutt I left something in her house. She brings it to the front door. She says, Coach, let me tell you something. I'm so embarrassed about what happened. I said, Mrs. Northcutt, that happens all the time. It's never had happened. I said, that happens all the time. Don't you worry about it. He says, the way Coach Tomey handled it, tense.
Yeah.
But classic Coach Tomey. Not somehow, just classic.
Yeah. Just salt of the earth and just a man's man. And I've heard several stories about how, Johnny Majors comes into a guy's living room. And Jesse Sapolo had mentioned, all these coaches coming in suit and tie, and they sit in my dad's recliner. Coach Tomey's in shorts and looking like a PE coach, but sitting in the floor, respecting the culture. And that connected and that resonated with parents in a way that maybe a suit and tie couldn't or didn't or wouldn't.
Absolutely.
I'm curious. So you've experienced Coach as a student athlete. You started your career as a GA. Your first OC, I believe, was at Arizona under Coach. So you've served him in many different roles. Talk me through that process. And if you didn't like the guy, you wouldn't have kept coming around.
Playing for him, he was we used to call him that. We used to call him a blue-eyed devil as a player. But he was fiery. He was. The next thing I would say, a team guy. But God, it was his way. Now it was he. I mean, and he cooled. By the time he got to Arizona, he had cooled down. Fresh. I mean, we had him fresh, his first head coaching job. And I mean, he could put the fear of you, blah, blah, blah in you. There was no doubt. And it, black, white, poly, it did not matter. I mean, he's getting up on a soapbox to look you in the eye, but God dang it. I mean, sometimes you had to get up in a bigger chair than that to look up some guys in the eye. But he was fiery, but he was honest. And he was somebody you could talk to. I remember being, I was team captain my senior year, and I went and had a conversation with him about the team, about individuals on the team. And he probably didn't like what I said, but he sat there and listened to me. And after I left, and I'm not going to talk about the topic, he made some changes, and I think those changes paid off. I don't know if he made them because of me. He could have been already ready to make those changes, knowing Coach Tomey. But he was open to change. He was open to do things a different way. I thought I saw on your thing. Well, I don't want to talk about that one. I thought did you ever talk about Camp Coach Chiefs where they had the swimming? Yes. And all like this. So my first year, the first year I went down there, Coach was talking about how they're going to get the champions, and then the coaches are going to swim against the guys. And I said, and he says, Dino, you're going to be on the team. I said, Coach, I can't be on the team. He said, why not? I said, Coach, I can't swim. I said, sure, you can. I said, Coach, I said, I can't swim. He says, you're on the team. What the coach? I cannot swim. You'll get it done. You're a competitor. You're on the team. Needless to say, I mean, I dove real far. I got almost to the middle of that. And that's about where I stayed extra long.
I'm picturing you after that conversation, like working after hours in the pool. Like you can't let the guy down.
And did. Now I will say this. Okay, we lost that. He said, Dino, you're not on the team.
That's awesome. Well, one thing that's come up repeatedly, I mean, he's just this, little white guy. He says he wasn't even an athlete. He played college baseball, but to hear him tell it, he wasn't athletic and grew up in the Midwest, starts his coaching career in Ohio. That's not really a formula for someone who brings different cultures together. And he goes to Hawaii and develops this recruiting pipeline for Polynesian players. And he's got players of all different backgrounds and ethnicities coming together for a common cause. And I'm curious your perception on that as a student athlete, and then in the 70s, no less. And that's remarkable. So talk me through what he did to build that culture and unify.
It was Ohana. I mean, it was family. It really was. He brought black guys, white guys, tally guys. It didn't matter. You were going to come in there and you were going to learn about other people's culture. We had, I remember we had a deal where you tell your story and we would sit down. And that started in Hawaii as a player, but we sat down, our entire football team, and everybody had to get against the wall and they had to tell their story. And you're talking about 100 people. We're talking about coaches, including coaches. And Coach Tomey would start and there were like coaches in between. But I mean, I don't know how long that took. It was like, I think about this. It's kind of an emotional thing too. But to hear so many people's stories about fighting and family and death and where their minds were at and why they had to succeed and how come they couldn't fail and everybody being able, there was something, Toby, that you would say in your story that was going to relate to me and how I grew up. And there's something was in my story that you could relate to. And in a way, it entwined everybody together into something that was tough, something that was deep.
This, to me, is the essence of people-first leadership. Story, connection, commonalities. In an outcomes-obsessed world, the thought of a new coach coming in and taking the time to gather everyone on his team together and one by one, person by person, taking the time to let every single individual share their story, on the surface, it seems horribly inefficient. Like there has to be something more important to do than sit around just talking and listening. But here's the truth. Great teams don't sprout from people who aren't connected. A connection never sprouts from nowhere. It takes time. It takes effort. And while on the surface it might seem like an inefficient way to spend a day, or even days, the payoff is later on. When you're shoulder to shoulder with someone in the heat of battle, you're more likely to dig deeper, give everything you have in their defense, because you know what they've been through. And likewise, they know you too. This isn't just good coaching practice. It's effective teaching practice. And it's effective leadership practice as well. Today we hear leadership gurus talk about the importance of workplace and team culture, about how focusing on a team's composition first can lead to enhanced performance and outcomes later. A 2010 meta-analysis published by Rovio and colleagues in Athletic Insight Journal looked at nearly 30 peer-reviewed studies on the importance of purposeful team building, and their findings were predictable. Quote, team building has a positive effect on group functioning, especially increasing group cohesion, end quote. You don't say. While modern coaches may read stuff like this and work backwards from a desire to win to a close-knit team to the use of story, I think it's clear that Coach Tomey had it the other way around. He started with stories because he knew you can't truly love someone you don't really know. And if you love them, you're connected to them. And when you're connected to them, you understand the idea of we greater than me. And if you understand that, then you're way more likely to get the absolute best out of every member of that team. Before it was cool, before it was contemporary, before it was culture, before it was considered evidence-based practice, Coach Tomey used stories. And in Christian circles, we'd say testimonies. Regardless, if I know you and where you hurt, and what you've been through and what motivates you, then there's a vulnerability revealed. And in that vulnerability comes the opportunity for me to serve you in a way that I couldn't do otherwise. And it all starts with teammates in a circle, sharing and listening and linking together.
He mixed, he did the stuff of mixing this guy with that guy. My first roommate stayed 1 week and left and went back to San Diego, went to a junior college, ended up being recruited and playing for Georgia. But my second roommate was a 6'7", blonde, blue-eyed Canadian. He tied in and talked like he was from Australia. Hey, baby. And his name happened to be Jim Mills, and the guy ended up being, I want to say, Rookie of the Year in the National Football League for the Indianapolis Colts. He was a 6'7" tight end that grew into a tackle and played in the National Football League, and he was from British Columbia. But you're mixing all these people. Now, we didn't have to live with them, but for camp, that's how it started, kind of like the Coaches thing. And doing that mixture of just learning all this different stuff, that when we broke off into our little cliques, during the season or whoever your roommates was, you were able to go into different pots because you'd heard so many stories. And I said this at Coach's funeral, but I want to say it again, is that Coach Tomey taught me how to love men. I mean, when you went through there, you had a true love for the guys you're playing with. And those are the guys that are going to be in your weddings. And those are the guys that are going to be at your funerals.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get around.
Mm-hmm. I might get emotional saying this, but in the research, I've come across two different clips. There's one of him speaking to Coach Brendan's team at the time at San Jose State. And there's another one of him, I believe he's talking to the Pima Athletics Hall of Fame induction, something like that. But he's talking about man hugs. And you get in there and, and he slaps you on the back of the neck.
Legend, Coach Tomey. Here we go.
Now, when I say a big hug, guys, stand up. Okay, I'm talking about a big hug. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about that. And then I'm talking about this. And you have to be excited about the fact that there is great competition because it's going to make you better. The team. That really isn't what it was. It was a bunch of incredible people. And as we gave each other, as Nancy, my wife Nancy, who's just the most important person in my life, as we were giving people each other what Nancy calls these man hugs, these real hugs, not these counterfeit hugs that people give each other these days where they hardly touch each other. I mean, we're talking two hands, gobble each other up.
And I got one of those after that 2000 season. That was rough. It's the GA. Like I'm not part of his report structure. I'm working with Matt and it's just from the top to the bottom. It doesn't matter if you're the OC or the freshman equipment ball boy. Like he's going to love you as hard as he knows how to love you. And you can't help but root for the guy and you can't help but give your best. And that's something that I've taken, and I didn't really realize it in that moment. But as you get away from it and you realize, hey, wait a minute, other people don't do that. Like this is unique. What I had was special. And I have to think that you being in those multiple roles, you experienced that firsthand. Did it change as you ascended in his hierarchy of coaching?
You would think it. No, not at all. I mean, same animal as a player. When I GA'd for him, classic. I had went to Canada to try out for the BC Lions CFL. And technically, when I came back, all the GA jobs were gone. He had said he'd give me a GA job, but he kept me in a GA position, but I was basically making manager money. So I was a manager. So I had to set up the field as a manager and then work the practice as a GA. And a lot of people didn't know that. But he's one of those guys where him being loyal to his players, loyal to his coaches, almost to a fault, but not breaking that bond. If you're inside that circle and you truly are family, you're not an individual, you're a team player, all about the team, then he's going to take care of you. And I'm going to share this with you, is that when I left Hawaii to go to Arizona State, this is Buzzy Preston, who was a longtime coach at Georgia Tech and a Hawaii guy, but played in Hawaii. He told me this. He said, Dino, do you really want to coach for Coach? I said, yeah, I would love to coach for Coach Tomey. He said, if you want to coach for Coach Tomey, the best way for you to do it is to leave. I said, what? I don't want to leave. Let's stay here and coach. He says, the best way to, if you want to work for him, is leave him and do a great job, and he'll bring you back. Yeah. And that's why I left Hawaii and went to Arizona State to work. And just like he said, was it 1995, 1996?
Yeah. So powerful. I don't have to tell you, coaching is a fickle business, and you could be at the top of the heap one year and on the hot seat the next. 98, 12-1, Holiday Bowl, historic on so many levels. And by 2000, it all crumbles. And that 2000 season was hard for everybody. Right. I'm curious though, in your experiences since, what did you learn from Coach Tomey watching that 2000 season in Tucson, and how did it serve you moving forward?
It taught me a lot of things. I watched the interaction between him and the administration. And of course, I'm not watching it from a head coach's standpoint. I'm not privy to conversations and things like that. But I'm a good recruiter. I have a lot of common sense, and I feel like I can read body language extremely well. And the body language was intensifying, so to speak. And just to watch how he did not let that affect the team, even though I think there was pressure on himself. He was not going to allow that to drip to the coaching staff or to his players. He wasn't going to ruin his players' season over something that's his issue.
Yeah,
with the administration, and just the way he handled it professionally left a huge impact on me, on what happened after that, and the way I went through my coaching story, so to speak, and my journey. And you can't learn it any better. You couldn't have a better teacher than Coach Tomey in the way he handled it that year.
Yeah. Well, without a doubt, you've carved out a successful path. Is there anything from Coach Tomey's playbook, and we can think of that literally or figuratively, that you still use to this day?
You know, Coach Tomey was really big on this. And Coach Tomey loved trick plays. He loved them. And he was going to always have one in, always have two in, and you're going to call. But the thing I learned from him most was to have a trick play in the game and to hold on to it and let the other team run their trick play first. Drove him absolutely crazy. So if you had a trick play, you had to run it before the other offensive coordinator called his trick play, or no matter what happened, you're going to get your tail ripped. Yeah. I got another story for you. So this is the 98 season too. Now this is kind of sensitive to me too, but this is classic Coach. So we played UCLA that year at home. It was a high scoring game. I think the offense turned it over with your two picks in the red zone, and we lost a close game to UCLA. Right. And after the game, he had rushed, I think Trung, I can't remember the numbers exactly. I think Trung had rushed for like 95 yards. And Coach met with all the coordinators, and he came over and met with me. And I mean, he ripped me in. Just ripped me a new one. I said, Coach, that's not fair. I said, I think we had close to 500 yards in offense. I think we did like school. I really do. I think we did. I might be wrong. Look the numbers up. I we threw for amazing numbers, 2 turnovers. He just ripped my tail that we didn't run the ball out. So this is a Dick Tomey lesson. So, I mean, people couldn't understand it. Sunday, I'm upset. Monday, I'm upset too. I'm not cussing or not. I don't get stuff. I mean, I'm just internally upset. I want anybody to read. You may not even. So we're going to play Oregon State next game, and I just can't get the taste out. I mean, he laid into me so hard. I just can't get the taste. And we go to Oregon State, and I got mad. And I think we threw the ball 7 times. I think we went. I'm trying to remember this. I think we went like 4 for 7 or 5 for 7. Throwing the ball. And I think we had 2 tailbacks. I know they both went over 100, but I want to say that like we had 2 goals. I don't know those 2. But after this, so we win the game and it's all that kind of stuff. And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him because I'm still mad about the other comments. And he just kind of, good game. Thanks. One of those things. Look, the story is the wide receivers. So I'm coming in and they're all outside the Oregon State locker rooms weren't too great at Oregon State back then. You got Dennis North. Now, see, the thing is, Jeremy McDaniels, I think he went over 100 yards and catches in that game, even though he might have had like 4 catches. He went over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Dennis North, Brandon Manny Mariota. I've got, oh my God, I forgot my guy that catches everything for a second.
Brad Brennan, Melosi Leonard.
And they're just, they're not saying anything to me because I love those guys. They love me. So they're all outside. They're not in the locker room. So I'm walking in and I go, Whitehouse over here. Oh, it's just, they're all on the curb, I think. I'm all in front of them. This after we just threw for 400 against the Breeze. And I'm just, got to apologize to you guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I just got mad. I just got mad and da-da-da-da. Sorry, it won't be like that the next game, but that's just how it was this game. And Dennis Northcutt looks up at me and he goes, "That's all right, Coach. That's all right. We all get mad. That's all right. We got it. We got it." And he goes, "Coach, just don't get mad again." Okay, Dennis, I won't get.
Yeah. And those 7 balls are thrown by 2 different quarterbacks at that. So
that's exactly right. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's awesome. Well, beyond the X's and O's, how would you say Coach Tomey shaped the man you became off the field?
It's I feel like I've had 3 dads. Biological dad. My high school coach, John Shackler, put a huge, really shaped me because my dad was away. He couldn't do all the things that a dad could do with me. He used to always step in. He's still alive. I spoke to him this week. Amazing guy. But Coach Tomey is like a second, third father to me. And not so much that he grabs and hugs everybody, but it's more watching his actions and watching him as from a 17-year-old till, oh my God, I don't know, a 30-something-year-old before I left him. He was just so consistently good, and he just, his big line, be consistently good, not occasionally great. Somebody you can wind your clock by day in and day out. I can be there for you. Those are the type of guys I want around me. And that's what he was. You knew what you were going to get for the most part, unless his eyes were deep blue on you, then you didn't know what you were going to get. But that consistency allows you to grow. And that's the thing that I learned the most from this. Be consistent. Whatever you are, be true to yourself, be true to your personality, and your guys can grow around you. And then listen to them. I mean, sometimes young people have a great idea. They really do. Just you got to listen to them and let them tell their story and let them get it off their chest. And then tell them what's best for the team. It may not be what's best for them. And what's best for the team may be for them not to be with us. Yeah, I tell those stories to guys. Like, I'm not going to kill your career, but this is not the place for you based off of things that you like.
Right. Powerful, powerful. Appreciate you sharing that. If you could go back in time and spend one moment with Coach Tomey on or off the field that you experienced, what would it be and why?
God, you're going to hurt. When I had an opportunity to come visit Coach when he had his cancer. And I really believe that I was like one of the last people to actually get a conversation, real him. And I was in his house in Tucson. Miss Nancy was there as well. And I asked him a question. I'm not going to tell you the question. I'm not going to tell you the question, but it was a deeply personal question. And this is him going in and out. I'll say reality. But I asked him a question about top level football, but I wanted to hear what his answer was. And closed his eyes. And I thought I was losing him, not losing him into death, but just he's going to go off on one of those tangents, and he wasn't with us or with me. But he closed his eyes for a long period of time. And I'm like, God, is he asleep? And then he opened his eyes, and well, I guess you're not going to get the moral of the story unless I tell you the question I asked. I asked Coach this. I was head coach of Syracuse. I asked Coach, I said, Coach, is it possible for you to win a national championship without you? That's the question. And he paused, he closed his eyes. A long period of time, then he opened his eyes and he said, I don't know. And it was so powerful because I knew he wasn't lying to me. And he knew that I really needed to know the answer.
Yeah.
And I want to say 1 or 2 weeks after that, he passed. But for him to give me that at the end is something that I've always remembered. And as crazy as that sounds, when I heard that name, image, and likeness that was starting, I thought, well, this will be great. Now everybody gets to pay players, and we all have a chance to win. But now it just seems like even more. Yeah, that's good. The players are getting paid. But now you have other issues now that everybody's getting paid on how to keep teams together and to be able to have long periods of run. People are more concerned about the people playing next to or playing for. Yeah, they deserve to get it. That's not what I'm talking about. Let's keep the team aspect.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And that actually leads right into my next to last question. The game has changed in so many ways compared to even when Coach Tomey was at San Jose, which doesn't seem like that long ago. But in terms of the cataclysmic shifts we've seen in college sports, it's a different game today. If Coach Tomey were coaching in today's era of NIL and transfer portals and analytics, how do you think he would have adapted?
Wow, I don't know about that. He's so team oriented. And I guess he would be that guy where everybody would make the same amount of money. And if you didn't want to make the same amount of money, then you didn't want to be a part of his team. And go have fun doing whatever the hell you're going to do. We're going to have a football team that loves each other, that's going to stay together. And we're going to go out here and compete as one.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the major thing. I don't think that it's not a situation where certain guys can't get more money, or, your quarterback, tailback, shut down corner, which Coach Tomey had so many NFL corners under Coach Akina. I mean, we had draft picks on offense, we had draft picks on defense. And there's no doubt that everybody could say, well, if you're going to pay somebody, pay that guy because he's real good. But to have the team working. Okay, team moment. Remember when we had the Leap by the Lake? Mm-hmm. We went to Washington without Chris McAllister, which is OMG. And we got the ball, I don't know, about 98 yards from the goal line. And we had to have 2 quarterbacks, one play quarterback, and then 1 4th down or 3rd down. And I don't know what. Smith completes a pass to Ortiz Jenkins running a comeback And then after he throws the BB to the other side of the field, he runs off the field and OJ goes back to quarterback to finish the drive from the lead by the lake. And that's in a 2-minute jump.
Let's see how many. Ortiz Jenkins, find number 8. Find Northcutt, would you? Because he's going to be open. Let's see how many Huskies come jogging. The cat from Arizona, just the 4. Jenkins steps up. He goes. He dives. He's in. That was one of the most phenomenal plays you'll see in college football. I give him a 10 across the board, Steve. He does a complete flip into the end zone. And if he doesn't land on his feet, Arizona is turned back. Well, I tell you what, Ortiz Jenkins, I have never seen something like that, but you see the remarkable athleticism of Ortiz Jenkins. What a play.
But that, have a win like that, and then to come back, and when the doors opened on the jet in Tucson that night, Chris McAllister was on the tarmac. To this day, I'm like, Chris McAllister, how did you get on the tarmac? You know how illegal that is? Get on the tarmac. He's there, and the team's going crazy. Won this game with goosebumps. I'm calling the truth, but that's Coach Tomey could take a kid from anywhere and instill that type of ohana, that La Familia, that family, and I mean, he makes men love each other. He makes us cry together. We're all crying.
Yeah,
he's crying. We're crying.
Yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't heard that story. I gotta compose myself. I had goosebumps hearing you tell that story. Chris McAllister, all world. I mean, he's, in this era today, that guy's a prima donna, and he doesn't answer to anybody but maybe his agent.
That's exactly right. And he was good enough that his agent was answering to him.
Yeah, so good.
Love that.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time. I got one last one here, a word association. If you had to sum up Coach Tomey in just one word, what would it be and why?
I would say family. He had the ability to walk into anybody. See, this is cool because I got to see it. He recruited, just like you said. The Jesse Sapolo stories, the Kessie Akalaba, the Nico Nogas, Chris McAllister, Lance Briggs. Lance Briggs was in my house sitting right now, right where I'm sitting. And all he was doing was talking about Dick Tomey. Went to the Bears, played with Urlacher. I mean, Lance Briggs, NFL, Pearl, all that stuff. And all we were sitting there talking about was Dick Tomey. He lasting impression, changing. You think the singing group Boys to Men? He should have took that down. He Boys to Men, and we're still fertilizing his thoughts, his loves, his mannerisms long after he's gone.
Yeah, so good. Well, I have one story, and I hope you don't report. Well, this is a me and you story. I love to work with the RBs and the wide receiver. When I went to the Raiders, they stuck me with the O-line. So when you're slopping water to O-line, that's a lot of work. But for the pretty boys, it's pretty easy work, and you get to see them throw balls and run and jump and do fun things. So I'm standing by your position group. I think you were the RBs at the time. And it was unseasonably cold in Tucson. And I didn't have a hat. And the student standing beside me, her hands were really cold, so she taken some pre-wrap and wrapped her hands in pre-wrap just to keep warm. And my ears were freezing. And I'm like, I'm going to get frostbite out here. And this is Tucson, right? This is spring ball, I think. So idiot me, she hands me the pre-wrap, and I start wrapping it around my head. And I'm not paying attention. And you're talking to your RBs. And she kind of nudged me, and I look over, and you had stopped kind of mid-sentence.
I better not have my arms folded because that's a penalty.
And I tell my students that, I'm like, okay, when you're out there, you're on. If your coach stops mid-sentence because you're doing something stupid, that is a horrible mistake. Fair enough. So my apologies. This is 20, 30 years later. I'm sorry for interrupting the middle of your speech. And I will also say this, my other Dino Babers memory, I don't know where Coach went, but he was out for one day. We were in Arizona Stadium. It was a fairly light, shells kind of thud practice. And you had kind of taken over and you were wrapping up that end of practice, Coach, the typical end of practice, take a knee, show me your eyes. And I remember hearing you give that speech addressing the team. And I'm like, that guy is an awesome head coach. and you were just filling in, just doing what you needed to do to fill in for your mentor. And I was just so happy to see where your career took you, because I could tell that just the inspiration just poured out of you in much the same way that we see Coach Tomey do the same. So I just wanted to tip my cap to you. Sincerely appreciate it. It's been a real honor and a joy to watch what you've gone on to do.
Well, Toby, I appreciate you're working at a very special place now. I used to be there, and I love that place. I'm still a little teed off that I never got a chance to play a game in that new stadium across the river that I watched being built so doggone long with all the people. Yeah. But maybe if I get a little free time off around here, I'll get a chance to come out there and watch you guys play a game. That'll be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Brisket on me and anything else you want.
Sounds good. I'm Dino Babers, and I am UnDone.
What does it mean to leave a legacy? Coach Dick Tomey, it meant more than wins or titles. It meant making men love one another. It meant creating Ohana out of chaos. It meant caring more about the person than the position. In this episode, Coach Dino Babers reminded us that Coach Tomey's real genius wasn't just in game plans or recruiting pipelines. It was in his unwavering consistency, that fierce loyalty, and his gift for building bridges between people who might not have otherwise been connected. And when Babers sat with him in those final days and asked one last question, Coach Tomey, true to form, didn't pretend to have all the answers, but he showed up honestly, with heart, just like he always had. I'm thankful to Coach Babers for dropping in, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation. For more info on today's episode, be sure to check it out on the web. Simply go to undonepodcast.com/EP117 to see the notes, links, and images related to today's guest, Coach Dino Babers. Coming up next week, you will not want to miss my conversation with walk-on turned NFL coach Dave Phipp, who now serves as special teams coach for the Detroit Lions, where he shares what it was like to play and serve under Coach Tomey. After that, we'll check in with Coach's son, Rich Tomey, who continues to serve coaches today in his work with the Positive Coaching Alliance. We'll have lots more after that as well. If you've listened this long, friend, I have a favor to ask. Please, would you be so kind as to send a text or a DM or even a phone call to a friend or a former teammate or a former staff member who worked with Coach Tomey and tell them about this show? We're now 6 episodes deep with more to come, and I would love nothing more than for thousands of people whose lives were touched by Coach Tomey to take this journey right along with the rest of us. In the meantime, stick with me. I promise we are seriously still just getting started. This and more on Becoming UnDone, the life, lessons, and legacy of Dick Tomey, a Toby Brooks passion project. Becoming UnDone is a Night Tribe creative production written and produced by me, Toby Brooks. Tell a friend about the show. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Becoming UnDone Pod. And follow me at Toby J. Brooks on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check out my link tree at linktr.ee/Toby J. Brooks. Listen, subscribe, and leave me a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great. And you're either coaching it or you're letting it happen. Till next time, keep getting better.